Okay, so well, welcome everyone again. So I'm very pleased to introduce this week's talk from Valia Allori from Northern Illinois University. So the title of the talk is Quantum Scientific Realism, or How Everyone Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Quantum Mechanics. So please, Valia, whenever you want.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you, Christian, for the opportunity to share this talk. Okay, so in case you're not familiar with this, okay, what's going on? Why don't I? Okay, yes, this is coming from famous movie, Dr. Strangelove, which I particularly like, but just in case you didn't notice the reference. Okay, so here is the punchline of what will be going on. So the point of this talk is just is that I will try to convince you that if you call yourself a realist, you should not consider the measurement problem. The measurement problem is not a problem for you. Okay, it's a problem for the instrumentalist. And in order to convince you of this, I will distinguish between three notions of realism: a robust notion, a more relaxed notion, and a kind of an hybrid notion. Okay, I will connect this with types of explanation that the theory is supposed to give you of the phenomena, and the robust will go through together with a dynamical constructive explanation, the radical relaxed with more of a principle type of explanation, and the hybrid, it's kind of an unconventional dynamical explanation with principle, so it's kind of a mix. Okay, and so if you're a robust type of realist, that's my point is going to be, well, you should not ever consider the measurement problem. You have a different problem to solve. If you're a relaxed realist, there is a sense in which the measurement problem, as we are taught, is already too much of a problem. So you shouldn't consider that. It's not a problem for you either. And if you are an hybrid, I will show you hopefully that you have no reason to care too. Okay, so right, so the bottom line is, again, that if you want to call yourself a realist, you have no reason to worry about the measurement problem intended as the precision problem of suppressing the macroscopic superpositions. So more generally, the scientific realist has what we can call the realist problem to make quantum mechanics compatible with scientific realism. And we have seen in the literature many ways to try to fix this problem, to fix quantum mechanics. And what I will do in this talk is showing you how different people are actually responding to different problems. One problem of empirical adequacy, to avoid macroscopic superposition, to eliminate macroscopic superposition, the precision problem, which is the measurement problem properly identified in the literature, and then the completeness problem, that even if you solve the precision problem, you have an additional problem to solve. And in correspondence, depending on which problem you think it's yours, then it means that you're endorsing a different kind of realism, which is again connected to this different kind of explanation. So I'm just going to reiterate this because I think this is a kind of, there is a sense in which this is to me kind of straightforward, but it's really not. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning, the Copenhagen view of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics, again, is unable to provide a microscopic description of the word that's explicitly accepted by Bohr. What instead the theory does us is provide us with a recipe for predicting experimental result. And as such, it's incompatible with scientific realism, namely the view that our scientific theories are giving us information about the nature of reality. Okay, so we have this realist problem. Traditionally, the realism problem, the problem of finding a way of making quantum mechanics compatible with scientific realism was taken to be the measurement problem. However, there is no unique way of thinking where the realism problem lies, and different people will find a different answer. So if we go back to the formalism that we find in physics books, we see, of course, that physical systems are described by the wave function psi. This evolves, as we know, according to the Schrödinger equation. Any solution of this equation describes possible state of affairs, which are observed to happen. The Schrödinger equation is an equation for the wave function, okay? Mathematically, this equation is linear, and that means that any sum of solution is a solution itself, right? Okay. And so here we have the first measurement problem, the problem of empirical adequacy. If the wave function describes everything and it evolves linearly according to the Schrödinger equation, then measurement will have no definite results. That's because the superposition of all possible results is also a possible result. And however, we never observe more than one result in each experiment. The pointer of all apparatus always point in a definite direction. So we have a problem of adequacy. We do not observe macroscopic superposition. Okay, of course, the traditional way out is the von Neumann collapse rule of the wave function, right? When a measurement is performed, the wave function collapses in one of the terms of the superposition. However, as we know, the story goes, and many people find this collapse rule totally unsatisfactory. Okay, it's unclear when it was supposed to be applied and why it applies, what makes a measurement different from any other physical process, when is actually a physical process a measurement, what about the observer? We all know these problems. So for basically for all realists, almost, the measurement problem is also a problem of precision, right? You don't want to simply eliminate this macroscopic superposition by appeal of the notion of measurement, a notion of an observer. They are too imprecise to belong to a physical theory, okay? So the adequacy problem shows that we need to eliminate an observer and macroscopic superposition, but we need to eliminate them in a particular way. So how do we do that? Precisely so. How do we do that? Well, we know. Okay, this is the traditional way to go. Measurement have definitely, so the solution of the problem of precision are found by observing that there is a tension between these three things, measurement having definite results, the wave function providing a complete description of the physical system, and evolving according to the Schrödinger equation, and depending on which of these three you reject, you end up endorsing one of the famous realist solution of what I'm calling right now the precision problem, to not mix them up with the other types of measurement problem that I think are other people are considering. So if you reject the first, you end up in the many word. Otherwise, you are a pilot wave kind of person. Otherwise, you endorse a spontaneous collapse. However, there is another possibility. The realism problem is that to believe that no, there is something still wrong about all this. Quantum theory is still fundamentally incomplete, as it is a theory about the wave function, and that's the problem lays in the wave function. The wave function is not suitable to describe a physical field. If that's the case, even if you solve the measurement problem understood as the problem of precision, namely you get rid of the macroscopic superposition, still, right, you're not getting a satisfactory theory, because you may solve the problem of precision without solving the completeness problem. Okay, so but what am I talking about with this attitude? Where is this attitude coming from? Why would someone think that there's still a problem? What's wrong with the wave function? Okay. So if you go to the measurement problems, kind of just go to through an historical journey. We know that the measurement problem usually you find it at in the 1935 Schrödinger CAP paper, but as some of you already know, and perhaps all of you already know, the fact that quantum mechanics was conceptually problematic was clear much earlier than that. If you go in 1926, right around the time of the Survey Conference, people were actually debating about the meaning of the theory, and some people were concerned about the wave function. There were these two formulations, Heisenberg's matrix mechanics, and which was where it was a kind of a purely mathematical theory, which was able to reproduce the measurement result, but it wasn't providing any understanding or any intelligible mechanism underlying. They would explain why the measurement result that they observed were actually produced. Then there was this Bohr particle wave duality thesis. The microscopic entities had no definite wave or particle nature, and it was proposed to show that we don't actually have adequate concept to describe. We had this, but not everybody was just like giving up, right? They were resisting this idea that we have to get over our desire of being scientific realism, and so we had de Broglie that proposed his own theory of waves and particles. Originally, it had a particle equation, but not a wave equation. And Schrödinger came up with this wave equation in 1926. But then which is indeed the Schrödinger equation, but Schrödinger got rid of the particles. And I mean, I don't really want to enter into the historical debate, but the point here is that both de Broglie and Schrödinger, with his own wave theory, were driven by the idea that there was something else. Schrödinger wave theory was accepted with enthusiasm by people like Einstein and Lorentz, right? Because in contrast with Heisenberg's matrix mechanics, Schrödinger's theory was, left some room for a realist understanding. After all, it was a wave theory. However, Lorentz complained that there was, still something wrong, right? He believed that he would have to go back reluctantly to matrix mechanics if Schrödinger could not solve what he thought was the fundamental problem, namely that the wave function is not in three-dimensional space, but it's in configuration space, namely the space of configuration of all particles, and will be a space with high dimension, a highly dimensional space. Okay, so there is this quote that I leave there, or I can just briefly read. If I had to choose now between your wave mechanics, referred to Schrödinger, this is Lorentz writing, and matrix mechanics, I would give preference to the former because of its greater intuitive clarity, so long as one only has to deal with the three coordinates. If, however, there are more degrees of freedom, then I cannot interpret the wave as vibration physically, and I must therefore decide in favor of matrix mechanics. There are similar concerns raised by Einstein. And what this quote suggests is that the realism problem, what these people were worrying about is in 1926 was what we can call the configuration space problem, the fact that the wave function is not suitable to represent physical entities because it is a wave in configuration space, regardless of whether there are microscopic or microscopic superposition. So for them, the realist problem is not that there are unobserved macroscopic superposition. So it's not the problem of adequacy, and it's not that we need a precise rule to get rid of them. So it's not the problem of precision. What seems to me is that for them, the realist problem is a problem of completeness. The wave function is not suitable to describe physical objects, so we need something else. Place. Yes?
why was Lorentz then more satisfied with matrix mechanics? Why did that have a more adequate realist understanding?
What I mean, according to the quote that I just showed, he said, I don't like the fact that the wave function is not in physical space, in three-dimensional space. So either you fix this problem, or I would go back to Heisenberg. That's what the quote says, right? I think it was just like a pressure.
Yes, but for Lorentz, did he find the Heisenberg picture understanding realist enough?
No, he hated it.
I mean, you mean it was more the maybe perhaps the vagueness or the greater abstraction of the Heisenberg matrix mechanics that he found it, that let him find it more acceptable, because it certainly wasn't anything more that it was more realist.
I mean, I should read more carefully, more letters about this, and maybe somebody else know the history more than I did. But to me, this is a suggestion that either was just like, look, Schrödinger, you know, try to fix it, because I don't really want to go back to that one because it was the only alternative, right? I want yours, so please fix the configuration space problem, which indeed he tried, right? Later on, he tried with the charge density interpretation. He tried to do that, and he noticed the spreading. I mean, arguably, according to some historians, Lorentz, which was organizing the 1926 conference, was inviting Schrödinger because of this of his wave interpretation. So I'm not sure. I'm not really sure if I answer your question, though.
Thank you, Valia.
Okay.
There is probably a finger from Alberto.
Thanks. I just wanted to comment on this. My understanding is that Valia is right. Lorentz made that point specifically, and if you read the letter, it can be understood in the sense that he considers Schrödinger theory one step in the right direction. But if that problem was not solved, it meant it was the wrong direction. So it was better to go back to no interpretation at all and think again. In that sense, he was a bit strong on the fact that if there was no solution to the 3n variables, then it meant it must have been the wrong direction. A good try, but so let's step back and try again another direction. I think that's really the approach.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, but thank you. Okay. Okay, so it seems it seems to me that at least different people consider different problems as problems to be solved if you want to try to make quantum mechanics compatible with scientific realism. In a sense, the problem of adequacy, you may think it's not realist enough, but I will try to convince you otherwise in a second. But so just, this is at least one problem, the empirical adequacy problem, which can be solved by the von Neumann collapse. Then the precision problem, what we traditionally understand as a measurement problem, and we do have the traditional solution, the many word, the Bohmian mechanics and GRW. And then the completeness problem. So what kind of solution could constitute something like that? Well, to better understand this, let me try to connect this problem to the different types of realist attitudes. So, so which of these three measurement problems should be the one of the interest of the realist? Well, so I can identify at least two types of realism, a kind of a relaxed type or weak type that says, well, a theory is amenable to a realist interpretation if it is able to account for macroscopic regularities. Okay, as long as you reproduce the phenomena with the aid of a precise rule, then you are providing a realist interpretation. There is a stronger version of realism that instead says a theory is amenable to a realist interpretation if it is able to provide a fundamental, dynamical, microscopic explanation, maybe compositional explanation of why such regularities actually happen. Okay, let's start with the robust. Okay, so Einstein himself was convinced that quantum mechanics was incomplete since a long time. And arguably, it was because of this reason that he thought it was incompatible with realism. I mean, trying to reconstruct the history, one can find at least 3 arguments that he provided from 1926 until 1935. The configuration space problem, that you can that's the one that we were talking about a few seconds ago. If quantum mechanics were complete, then the wave function would be a wave in configuration space, which cannot be interpreted as something vibrating, and therefore, and that is unacceptable. You can also think of the EPR non-locality argument as another way of making the point of completeness in this sense. If quantum mechanics were complete, then the world would be non-local, and that is unacceptable. And then the Schrödinger cat problem, which was, and if you read some letters, you will find it also in Einstein. If quantum mechanics were complete, then we would have macroscopic superposition, and that is unacceptable. So he was really trying to provide a proof for multiple proof for incompleteness. Then quantum mechanics. So Einstein was a robust kind of realist. That's he was looking something to account for the quantum rules. Where are these quantum rules coming from? So both Einstein and Schrödinger wanted to make quantum mechanics compatible with scientific realism by providing, arguably, a fundamental microscopic description of the quantum world rather than merely suppress macroscopic superposition. That's what, arguably, what Schrödinger was trying to do, providing the charge density interpretation. And there is a sense in which, if that's true, the spontaneous localization theory and the many world theory would not be an option for them. And this is it. And the primitive ontologists who believe that what fundamentally quantum mechanics is about is something other than the wave function, they're following Einstein Schrödinger in this attitude. Okay, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but
yeah.
Yes.
But what I don't understand, that it seemed to me that when you read Schrödinger's paper about the cat, or even Einstein's letter about the gunpowder, they identify implicitly the wave function and the cat. They don't seem to mention the fact that the wave function of a cat is not a cat, as far as I know.
They don't. So can you just repeat that?
It seemed to me that they don't mention what you call the the configuration space problem. Namely,
when Einstein,
in those papers, at least in the cat paper.
In the cat paper, no, they don't.
The cat is in a superposed state, but then he identified the state of the live cat with the live cat and the state of the dead cat. I mean, he identifies the wave function with the thing in 3 dimensions, at least implicitly. He doesn't seem to underline the fact that it's not the same thing.
Right. Okay. So this would require a lot of digging in the history. This is just like a work in progress paper, but I think there is something to that. But what I think Schrödinger and Einstein wanted to do with the cut paper was try to convince the instrumentalist friends, Bohr and company, that even from their point of view, right, it didn't make sense. Okay, so according to me, what Schrödinger did with his 35 paper was not something for his own understanding. Was just like, look, right, there has to be something wrong with what is going on here, because even if I take your, it was just like a absurdum argument, right, a reductio argument. Even if we go with you, right, and say this is the case, no, still, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Valia, sorry, if you don't mind, there, of course, I'll let you speak more. There is a remark from Aurélien on this.
Yes, it will be very short because too many remarks. It will break your speech, your talk. Sorry. So the remark is also about the same topic. I think you are right to say that the configuration space was very, very fundamental for Schrödinger, for Einstein, also for de Broglie, because in 27 it was a subject of very strong discussion between those guys, because Schrödinger mentioned that he wanted to remove the configuration space in this conference published in Solvay, and he wanted to go back to the three-dimensional space. And he said that it would be great to do this, but he was not able to find that. And it was a subject of discussion because de Broglie wanted also to on Thesis to stress that the configuration space is only a tool. So I think yes.
Yes, you can find in all this paper from 27 to 26 to 27 and maybe 28 as well, several lines that suggest this. But I mean, even if we are wrong in interpreting Schrödinger, still there is this problem, right? So even if we don't want to enter into a historical debate what Schrödinger had in mind, still, right, you can identify what about, I mean, this is a position that people can hold, right? And to say that, look, right, even if we solve the precision problem, we still have a problem to solve, right? Namely, we want reality to be we want the mathematical entity describing the world to be in three-dimensional space. Okay, we want to picture them, to see them. There is a German word to say, but I'm not gonna say it because I don't know how to pronounce it. But that's the word that Schrödinger was using. Okay. So what was before? Okay, so I mean, so there was this position and say, look, right, there is something wrong in quantum mechanics, and it has to do with the wave function, not with the macroscopic superposition or with the macroscopic or microscopic. It's not that, it's the wave function. Why? Well, because it's not in three-dimensional space. However, there is another position to say, no, there's nothing wrong with that, right? We are realist. The second position, the proponent of the second position says, but we are not committed to say, oh, we want something in three dimension, right? So there is one way to be realist in this way, which is, I call this kind of realism kind of relaxed, to distinguish the Einstein one with, or Schrödinger one with robust. And I call it relaxed but radical because there will be another one which is kind of in the middle. Okay, so traditionally, realism is contrasted with instrumentalist. Instrumentalists care only about reproducing experimental outcomes, while instead realists care about understanding the nature of reality. Realists usually advocate that you need to solve the problem of precision, eliminate macroscopic superpositions. Some of them, I mean, forgetting Einstein, precisely, no measurement observable or observer, okay? However, there are also those people who call themselves realist, right? Without seeing the need to solve the precision problem either. So there are this type of relaxed in the sense that they don't need to solve the configuration space problem. But they also think that they don't even need to solve the precision problem. They just need to solve the empirical adequacy problem, and therefore they're happy with the von Neumann one.
But whom do you have in mind?
Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Right. So information theoretic people like Bube and Petoskey, they want to say the quantum theory is to be understood realistic. They're explicit about that. They want to say that they call themselves realist. Okay. And quantum theory is to be understood as laying out a set of constraints, right? It's a set of principles that say what can or cannot happen. Okay. And they're realist in the sense that this data exists objectively and mind independently. The observers do not enter into that. Or there are other kinds of realists like Ladyman and Ross. You can also think about the
But
cubists.
before you get to them, you speak Bube and Petoskey, the information theoretic. I mean, from what you just said about it, it didn't sound like they were taking a realist attitude towards the wave function on configuration space itself.
Yes, they don't think that the wave function in configuration is describing anything other than the knowledge of the of the experimenter. Okay, but they want to claim that they're realist in the sense that there are these data, right? And all we need to do is systematizing the data. Okay.
How is that different from instrumentalism?
Well, I'm not endorsing what they're saying, but they want to say that they are providing an explanation of the phenomena. Okay, which instead the instrumentalist wouldn't care about that. Okay, they're explicit about saying something like that. So they want to. So that's what actually. That's why this kind of blew my mind the first time I saw it, right? Because I couldn't put things together, and that's why I ended up going in this talk because they had something in mind, and I couldn't figure out what they had until. And this is kind of a partial attempt to put everybody in their place. So they think they want to be realists. What kind of realists are they? What kind of explanation do they want? What kind of problems is their problem to make quantum theory compatible with realism, right? I was trying to systematizing the data that I have, that different people were looking at the problem of realism, quantum theory. They were vastly different from one another. Okay, and so, and indeed, what I have in this slide is your concern, Shelley, that usually people are just like, what are you talking about, right? This is not realist, right? This is just instrumentalist. But they say, no.
To the extent that it is realist, I guess an instrumentalist would say, I'm a realist too, to that extent. It's just hard to see any substantive difference.
I know, but I think that if you grant them that there is a difference, right? Okay, let's pretend there is a difference. I don't think there is, right? No, I do think that I still think that they're not realist enough, right? But because I have a different conception of realism. But if you grant them that there is some realism over there, I think that there is a lesson to be learned about what's going on. Okay, that's hopefully what I will manage to convey at least a little bit. Okay, so the usual reaction is that, oh, no, this is just like, I don't understand how this is realist for you, okay? However, they say, no, we are realists, right? They wanna say that scientific theories describe as a description of what's unobservable. They simply think that a microscopic description is not needed to make an explanation satisfactory. This is almost a quote from one of the paper. So they want to say that you don't need to go to have a kind of an ontology of what is unobservable to have a satisfactory scientific theory. Okay. That's why I think that one needs to dig in exactly what they mean by explanation, because clearly, right, there has to be some disagreement about what they think a satisfactory explanation is with respect to, the other type of realists. Okay, but before I go to explain with the connection with explanation, let me analyze the other camp over here. So on one hand, we have the robust, right? Completeness problem. Even if we solve the precision problem, we still have a problem, configuration space. The radical relaxed realist, we have, we are realists, right? In the sense that we explain, right, the phenomena. We don't even need to solve the macroscopic superposition problem precisely. We are happy with the von Neumann rule. In the middle, we have everybody else, basically. Somebody may ask for more, right, than just von Neumann, without necessarily going robust, who could still care about the adequacy, adequately reproducing the phenomena, but she could also care about having all the physical object and processing being governed by unified, precise dynamic, right? What is this measurement business? In other words, one would like to have an equation of motion for both the micro and the macro. So while the radical relaxed realist, we just saw while the relaxed realist, the problem was the problem of adequacy. Now we're analyzing people who think, no, the problem is just the precision problem. Okay. So this type of realism, they care about experimental prediction, right? But they want to solve them precisely to get rid of the macroscopic superposition precisely. This type of non-radical relaxed realism provides this kind of a middle ground between the robust and the radical relaxed. Okay. Okay, so however, this is kind of very strange, peculiar position to hold if you will have the patient to follow me. So think again, how did the realist end up focusing on the phenomena, on the macroscopic superposition and not on the microscopic dynamics, right? I mean, if you're, instrumentalists care about the phenomena, macroscopic superpositions. So why do we care as realists, right, for more, for that, right? We should care for more. And indeed, this is the position of the robust realist, who cares about more than just eliminating macroscopic superposition. She looks for the microscopic dynamics which generates what we observe at the macroscopic level. She uses the measurement problem to make the point that quantum mechanics is fundamentally, incomplete, not complete, rather than to claim that this is enough to eliminate the macroscopic superposition. Okay, so the question is, why think that the measurement problem is the realist problem? So in other words, to me, it just seems that it would make sense for the instrumentalist to care, I just care about the data, right? I don't want unobserved macroscopic superposition, but the realist, she should be asking for more. And this is kind of paradoxical, of course, because this is the realist who brings up the measurement problem, is the problem of quantum theory. And of course, right, the fact that the measurement problem is an instrumentalist problem is clear from the name, right? It's a problem for which measurement outcomes we could observe, not a problem about why we observe them. We do not worry about what kind of microscopic description could give rise to such a macroscopic outcomes. Okay, so summing up, we seem to have this kind of chart We have robust realists, according to which the realism problem is the completeness problem. Radical relaxed realists, the problem of quantum mechanics is the empirical adequacy problem, and the hybrid is the precision problem, which is the measurement problem as traditionally intended. Okay, so for the relaxed realists, we have they accept the von Neumann rule. That's enough. For the robust, they need to complete quantum mechanics regardless. For the non-redox, this is kind of, you know, a mix. They accept the bare GRW theory, the many word theory, and some versions of hidden variable theories. Okay, so
well, what is the? Can you go back to that chart? I mean, let's take many worlds is probably the most prominent type of person who's a non-radical realist, I guess.
Right.
What they would say, they have a perfectly precise theory given by Schrodinger's equation.
Mm-hmm.
The robust type who may add an extra equation. How could those people be more being more precise? They have the minimum number of equations, just Schrodinger's equation. Yes. Everybody else has that equation too, so they're certainly as precise as anybody else. So what is it? Why do you say they're not? There's a precision problem for them.
No. According to them, they want to solve what. So in here. Okay, so can you see the mouse? Okay, so the type of problem that quantum theory, you know, the orthodox quantum theory need to solve is the precision problem, namely precisely eliminating macroscopic superposition. They think that the von Neumann rule is not enough, right? Because it's not precise, but they do believe, right, that they're providing a solution of the precision problem. Does it make sense? All right. Okay, so
yes, thank you.
All right. All right. But I'm going to talk more about what these kind of people are actually talking about, if I manage. All right. So it's interesting to see how it kind of an explicit suggestion that there are different measurement problems that concern different people has been put forward by Pitosky. Okay. So he says that there are two different type of measurement problem, the small problem and the completeness problem. What he calls the big problem is what I have called the completeness problem, to provide a dynamical microscopic explanation of the phenomena. The small problem instead is the problem of eliminating macroscopic superposition. So the robust realists require a microscopic dynamics, and therefore they complete quantum theory. So they focus on the big problem. The relaxed theory instead, Pitosky wants to argue, they're actually solving the small problem. What's going on here? In the traditional study in the philosophy of quantum physics literature is that many words in GRW theory are theory about the wave function. That is fundamental equation of quantum mechanics. That is the fundamental equation of quantum mechanics is an equation of the evolution of the wave function. So the wave function is the fundamental object of the theory. One should be realist about. Okay, this is what the preliminary argument for the fact that we should be realist about the object that the wave, the main object of this theory, right? This position is called wave function realism. Okay, so which type of realists are many words theorists? Well, and this is the argument put forward by Boob and Pitosky, which I happen to agree with. They are relaxed realists. They don't call them relaxed realists. They say they solve the small problem. Since the theory only solves the small problem. Okay, so what are the many word people, what are they doing? Well, they're just making sense of macroscopic superposition. They say, well, we do not see them because they're in different terms of the superposition and never interact with one another. The alternative outcome of a measurement process are associated with different branches in the decomposition of the wave function. So what they're doing is, and they save the appearances. These are again words of Bube-Pitosky. The theory needs to explain how measurement have definite results, and this reply is that they don't, right? And so in virtue, what they're doing is they systematize the data. They just say, look, right, we observe this because, and they provide a reason, a precise reason, right? But what problem are they solving? Well, they're solving what Bube and Pitosky were calling the small problem, right? They are not providing a microscopic dynamical explanation of the phenomenon.
Valia, quickly, you started 45 minutes ago, but given all the comments and so on, like really don't worry, take your time.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So what about the GRW people? Well, in actual possibilities, again, wave function realism, what have been called a bare GRW, everything is the wave function. Since the wave function is in configuration space, this theory is not a solution of the completeness problem, and therefore these people are not robust realists. And indeed, what wave function realists need to do and are actually doing is to derive the appearances, provide the three-dimensionality, right? The localization of object, the regular macroscopic properties. They need to do that in terms of the wave function, right? This is not a solution. This is not a completeness problem. This is just, they're solving the small problem. There are two main attempts, maybe. One is Albert's functionalist reduction on three-dimensional microscopic objects from the wave function. And then there is another one from by Alyssa Néel that proposes that symmetries can actually help out single out three-dimensionality. Okay, I'm not going to discuss this here, but this is just what they're doing. They try to use tools that are kind of new to physics to derive appearances from the wave function. If so, and it is, wave function realists are relaxed realists in denial. They're in denial because they think of themselves as, you know, being robust, right? They care more about the appearances, right? They take the wave function ontologically seriously. And I mean, I'm not showing you any quotes, but I could. However, what they end up is endorsing a position which in a very strong sense, it is way too similar to the relaxed realist than they would arguably like, right? The radical relaxed realist, Bube and Pitosky, information theoretic people, cubists, all these kind of people, the one that are borderline instrumentalists, they're systematizing appearances. You don't want to be that. You, wave function realist, are actually doing something very similar. You're just systematizing appearances too. You're not solving the big problem. You're not solving the completeness problem. You're just, you know, doing the same thing that they're doing precisely. So we have seen many words. And what about pilot wave? I don't want to call it Bowman mechanics because Bowman mechanics is just kind of precise understanding of what pilot wave theories are. But okay, so many wave function realists find the pilot wave theory not very compatible with their own ontology because of a variety of reasons. You have n particle in three-dimensional space and one wave function in 3n dimensional space, or you can have one particle and one wave in 3n dimensional space. Well, if one, then how do particles and the wave function interact? You have a communication problem. If 2, then they still have the configuration space problem, and then we seem to lose the motivation for the theory. Well, why that particle if you can do that with wave alone? Okay. So of course, a better way of understanding this theory is in terms of the primitive ontology, and say, look, I mean, the theory is not about the wave functions, about you know, about particles in 3-dimensional space. This is Bowman mechanics, properly speaking. The way in which I understand it is that there is this, the reason why you say this, the reason why I say this is that because I have this underlying assumption that the realism problem, the problem that quantum mechanics needs to solve, is the incompleteness problem, right? One always needs an ontology represented by a mathematical object in 3-dimensional space. And therefore, all quantum theory, that's how you understand that all quantum theories are incomplete, right? They all should be thought as invariable theory in the sense that that matter needs to be described by something else, but not by the wave function. Like, I don't know why I keep saying complete, but what I want incomplete, right? If one grants the quantum mechanics is incomplete, that you can complete it however you want, right? And that's what this business about, GRWM and GRWF and GRWX and SF as FM. These are all solutions of the realism problem seen as the incompleteness problem, right? Not as the precision problem. We are not solving the precision problem. We're solving something deeper than that, more difficult to solve than that. Going on now? What did I do? Okay. So yeah, okay. So I don't want to enter into the, okay, what did I do? It doesn't want to go away. All right, it's gonna stay. So what is the wave function? It's not an expression of ignorance. People have proposed that it's law-like. I'm going to just skip to that, right? So what is important is this final step is to connect these problems and this understanding of what realism amounts to the type of explanation that you care about. So Einstein distinguished between 2 different types of theories, okay? Principal theories and constructive theories. Principal theories that he regarded, no surprise, as unsatisfactory are theories that are formulated in terms of principles which are used to constrain on physical possible processes, as like in thermodynamics, oh, no perpetual motion machines, okay? Constructive theories, according to him, were more fundamental, involve instead the dynamical reduction of the macroscopic objects in terms of the motion of interaction of the microscopic constituents, like kinetic theory. Okay. All right, I'm just going to skip the quote. So he introduced this distinction to criticize his own formulation of relativity theory. Let me just skip on this, since I don't want to, you know, take out too much time on quotes. However, Einstein could have said something similar to quantum theory. Quantum mechanics with the collapse postulate can be seen as a principal theory. Indeed, Boob and Petoskey, the IT information theoretical approach people, explicitly accept this. Someone like Einstein would think of this as a phenomenological theory, because you get a complete satisfactory theory only if you have a microscopic dynamic explanation of such phenomena. A robust realist would favor constructive theories. Einstein, he proposed a distinction to show this. The primatologists would do the same as well. They care about, we care about the dynamical explanation, right? That's why we insist on having something in 3-dimensional space, because if you do, then you can, you know, explain the macroscopic phenomena in the same way as you did in classical physics with, you know, qualifications. So a robust realist would favor a constructive theory and would regard quantum theory to be incomplete, and therefore would like to solve the big measurement problem, the completeness problem. A radical relaxed realist like Boob and Petoskey, right, the two opposites, would instead favor principal theory and would regard the realism problem as the small measurement problem. What about the people in the middle, right? The people that most people who are realists are people in the middle. So on the one hand, the wave function realists claim that they want to be robust realists as they wish to provide an understanding of the fundamental reality. And therefore, it seems like the theory they propose should be constructive, right? But however, this would require dynamical derivation of the quantum rules in terms of the fundamental microscopic and three-dimensional ontology. Right? But instead, the explanation that they provide of the macroscopic phenomena is instead fundamentally non-constructive, right? Because what the wave function realists provide is principles, right? That would need to constrain the phenomena. Albert constrained the phenomena by postulating that the Hamiltonian has to be such and such, right? And Néel constrained the phenomena by postulating that certain symmetries properties should hold, okay? These principles are constraining the phenomena. This is the way in which they want to provide an explanation of the phenomena. This is non-constructive. Wave functionalists do not provide with a principal theory either, however, because if you look at the original, characterization, right, principal theory care only about kinematics, right? Instead, wave functionalists do care about dynamics a lot. Well, the precision problem was motivated to have a precise equation for the dynamics at all scales, right? Albert's functionalist account uses the dynamics, even if not constructively, by using the Hamiltonian, recovering three-dimensional space. Having a non-constructive explanation and giving importance to the dynamics seems to pull somewhat in opposite directions. The former pushes toward radical relaxed realism, right? And the other pushes towards robust realism, making wave function realism a kind of a strange hybrid, peculiar. I don't mean, it's not necessarily a bad. Okay, so we do, this is a completion of the chart before, okay? I've added this column over here. Constructive dynamical is the type of explanation favored by people who favor the completeness problem as saying you need to complete quantum theory, okay? On principal kinematic.
I don't understand why you call that, what did it say the Albert view? Can you explain again, why is it non-constructive?
Because with constructive explanation, what is usually meant is that you have, building blocks, right? And this is the way in which you derive the dynamics of the microscopic description constructively explains the dynamics of the macroscopic phenomena. Okay.
What does constructive explains mean?
Constructive means that a table is a collection of particles.
In other words, when you say non-constructive, you're complaining about the functional kind of analysis they do.
Well, not only that, I'm just saying that whatever they're doing, they're not doing like usually dynamical theories are doing. Okay, it's not constructive in the sense that in statistical mechanics and for instance, what you're doing is explaining the phenomena constructively and dynamically, because you imagine that a gas is a collection of microscopic entities, right? And that's what usually is understood as a dynamic. So in this case, you reduce the phenomena, so to speak, in terms of the motion of these little entities, right? That's something that is not happening in Albert's view or Néel's view at all. They do something else, right? They use this functionalism, they use symmetries, but not in the way that makes them consistent with the way in which they're used in general, right? So whatever they're doing, they're providing a non-constructive explanation. It's not an explanation in terms of principles, right? It's not that you're saying, oh, this is the principle, right? No perpetual motion machines, right? They don't say that. They say, no, I mean, whatever is an object is whatever behaves like an object, or, they provide constraint. They care about the dynamics. So they're taking, ingredients for both camps. And that's what I said, that they're kind of, a hybrid, because it's unclear exactly how to classify the type of explanation that they care about. What they think it's a good explanation, it's a bad explanation. I am a robust realist, and I like constructive explanation, dynamic explanation. I think that they think that they are satisfactory. They want to say you're asking for too much, right? Here is another way of doing that. And I'm simply pointing out that they're different. I think, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just going to argue that for them, it's kind of, inconsistent, but I haven't done the argument yet.
Valia, sorry, I wonder, I think
Yeah.
I get the distinction. I might agree that the word constructive, it's a bit unclear to me. Is there like a link with the reductive, non-reductive in some way? Because for them, it's not fully reductive as a kind of explanation.
Yes, yes.
Function.
Right.
I can just read it as reductive and failure of expansion.
Right.
Thank you.
I didn't want to use reductive because, reductionism is a loaded word, but yeah. I mean, that's, if you don't want to be too picky on that, yes, read that way. Okay. I'm not completely, I mean, I have a few more, hopefully. Okay, so radical relaxed realist. So hopefully I managed to convey that there are at least 3 different problems that people are actually caring about. And that's why a lot of the time they are just talking past one another. People are just talking past one another. They care about different things. And these problems are connected to a very different way of understanding what explanation amounts to. So let's go back to the measurement problem again. So the radical relaxed realism can be, well, we could just say that one could maintain that there is no more to realism than just radical relaxed realism, right? Namely that we should be fine with constraining and systematizing the phenomena, right? And that other approaches are redundant. That's what Boob and Petoskey would say. So if so, then radical relaxed realism is correct in their distinction between the big and the small problem, and one should aim at solving the small problem rather than the measurement problem, understood as precisely eliminating the macroscopic superposition. So if you are a realist in this way, you shouldn't care about the measurement problem. What about robust realists? Well, they are the ones that they say, I mean, other people can just say, robust version of realism is the one which truly captured the spirit of scientific theory, realism, right? The relaxed version is way too weak, right? And this is, I think, what, sorry, there is missing an I, of course. But if that's the case, right, then the robust realists put too much focus on the measurement problem, right? A robust realist should think that quantum mechanics is just like thermodynamics, and she should focus she should look for its corresponding dynamical microscopic explanation. Spontaneous localization theory and many word theory do not provide a dynamical explanation of the phenomena, and reductionist microscopic explanation, but merely set a principle to constrain the phenomena. Okay, I mean, after all, primitive ontologists like me have proposed other theories, just like GRWM, no, it's not like we propose. We propose as satisfactory theories like GRWM, GRWF, and so on, right? So GRW bare, not an option because it doesn't provide the robust kind of realistic theory that we should look at. Okay, same for many words, right? SM, SF. Okay. So, and this theory should not have been, in a sense, right? Bare, GRW, many word theory, bare should never been a concern for the robust realist in the first place. Okay. And so the measurement problem in itself should not have been considered. It's not enough that you solve the measurement problem. All you need to do, you also need to you need to solve this, the completeness problem. GRW and many words by themselves do not solve that. What about the wave function realist, the non-radical relaxed realism? Well, these are, I mean, in general, and that's not the, I mean, I'm just picking on the wave function realism, right? But there could be other like that. They just say, well, look, I mean, you're robust realist, you're asking for too much. Radical relaxed, you're asking for too little. I mean, the reality should be in the middle, right? So a realist could look at the fundamental rather than the microscopic reality beyond the phenomenon, right? This is something that a wave function realist would say, and I think they say it sometimes. However, this is an hybrid view because of this, right? Exactly because they say, forget about the microscopic, right? The wave function in itself is not really what we commonly would call a microscopic entity, right? So because of this hybrid, and this is my last point, which I will do in not many slides, I hope, is that if you, being an hybrid like that, you have two challenges. One is the one that we have seen already. There is a tension between the desire to be a strong form of realist and the kind of explanation that you are providing if you're a wave function realism, which is not constructive. So the wave function realists start off as a robust realist, understanding the, the reality, but she ends up too close to, the radical relaxed realist than he would have liked. So, and that's a problem because, I mean, what is the point of solving the measurement problem in the sense precise, right? Eliminating the microscopic superposition if you can do it without, right? What's the point of the preciseness? Well, the point of the precise, and one could argue, well, we need a precise rule to specify the collapse because we care about the dynamics. Right? One wants a unified dynamic which is applicable at all scales. But why do you care about the dynamics if you're a wave function realist, right? You're providing a non-dynamical explanation after all. So what's going on? Okay, so that's the first puzzle, right? In order to say that you're better than the IT information theoretic people, you need to say that the problem that you need to solve is the precision problem. But why should you care about that? Oh, because I care about the dynamics. Yes, but why do you care about the dynamics if the dynamics is not helping you in the explanation? It's just like, I find this strange. The second tension is the following. So there's a tension between the realist desire that they have to read quantum mechanics as a theory about the wave function, and then the realist desire of understanding the macroscopic phenomena in terms of the microscopic one, as it is done in statistical mechanics. Okay, so in other words, if someone wishes quantum theory to be about the wave function, she should not be too attached to this constructive reductive understanding, right? However, there are people like, for example, David Albert, that has defended the view that statistical mechanics is the statistical mechanical constructive explanation of thermodynamics. He also argued that the same explanatory strategies used in classical domain should be extended to the quantum domain, right? So, and I'm just going to skip the reasoning that he does, but I mean, the point is that he wishes to say that he likes the statistical explanation, the statistical mechanical explanation. This kind of explanation is constructive, okay? He thinks that you can have a quantum statistical explanation as well. He believes that GRW is best suited, but I'm not gonna go through the argument right now, okay? But at the same time, the GRW explanation is non-constructive, non-reductive. So we do have two types of explanation, right? One, which is non-constructive, non-reductive, right? And then the constructive statistical explanation, the constructive statistical mechanics explanation of the phenomena, right? And so according to me, there is a tension here, right? Because on one hand, if you're a wave function realist, you should care about you shouldn't care about constructive explanation. But then in statistical mechanics, you have constructive explanation. And so I find that to be an indication that there is something to be worked out here. All right, so this is the summary. What I've tried to argue is that, after all, the measurement problem is a red herring. It has been proposed by realists to reconcile quantum mechanics with scientific realism, but it should have been never considered by realists at all. By focusing on the problem, just created, in my opinion, just a vast amount of confusion that somehow prevented people to meaningfully understand one another. So if you're a radical relaxed realist, like, for example, an information theoretical approach person, you should be happy with the wave function rule, and indeed they are. If you're a robust realist, like the primitive ontologist, you should focus on the completion of quantum theory. Should never, in a sense, and I'm willing to back up on that if you push me for other reasons, but not because of the argument that I made. You should never have focus on the bare version of GRW and many word. And in my opinion, and I'm guilty of that as well, we should never have focused so much on say, oh, the problem of quantum mechanics is the measurement problem. No, it's not. Okay, it's the completeness problem. If you're a radical, sorry, if you're a non-radical relaxed realist like the wave function realist, it's unclear what you should focus on, because if you care about the principal explanation, you should not care about the measurement problem, but only about the adequacy problem. If you care about the dynamics, then you should care about the completeness problem, right? But as you can see, never the measurement problem. The measurement problem is just the problem for the instrumentalist, period. Okay, so I'm officially done, and I thank you for your attention. Okay.
Thank you, Valia.
Thank you.
Okay, so I already have a fairly long list. People, if you have questions, now I see hands, but they are uploading. Soon I'll see hands that are raising hands. So I'll start with Aurélien, then I have Andre, Davide, Jean, and Vincent. If you have questions, please also raise your hand and I'll add you to the list. Since we have 45 minutes, I would suggest that you stick to just one follow-up, no more than one. Thank you. Aurélien.
No, but then okay, I will be fast. Then my question is about your map. When you summarize the different kind of realism, you put you put hidden variables and primitive ontology in different layers. I'm lost. Oh, I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I muted myself. Right. So yes, I put them in two different spots because there is a sense in which there are, so the primitive ontologists are saying, look, right? I mean, the first and foremost primitive ontologist theory is Bohmian mechanics, okay? And it says, that theory says, quantum theory is about particles moving in three-dimensional space, and then there is a wave function, and I would say this wave function is nomological, blah, 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 okay? There are other people who think that there are these two ingredients, right? The particles and the wave function, but they're not as, you know, committed to say that this wave function is not describing reality at all.
Okay, so you
Okay.
put two different readings of the same theory. You can put two different interpretations of the same maths.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You can see, I mean, more than you can see Bohmian, I mean, the pilot wave theory as Bohmian mechanics, a particle ontology. Another kind of, I mean, Davide would call it Bohm's theory, particles and the wave function in three-dimensional space and multi-field, okay? Or Albert's view, a marvelous point and the wave function in configuration space, okay?
Okay.
The primitive ontologists was like only the first, the latter, the other, they would not.
Okay. Okay.
Make sense?
Thank you.
Andre is next.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Valia. I'll try to make my comments very brief. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you both on your presentation, and the paper is very clear. And I would like to point out that I particularly like the way you historicized the realist problem in quantum mechanics. I believe you are completely right in pointing that the realist problem at the early quantum theory was a completeness problem. And I think it is an open historical problem how it started to be seen as a precision problem, and how von Neumann's collapse postulate was understood by it, and how it emerged. For example, Rosenfeld would recall that Bohr never liked the von Neumann's axiomatization of quantum mechanics, and never liked the collapse postulate because he saw it as less rigorous than complementarity. Complementarity would have more, would be used with more rigor when treating those problems of the measurement. And Don Howard, in his 2004 paper on the who invented the Copenhagen interpretation, tries to reconstruct a complementarity argument, and he distinguishes it from a collapsed argument. And on that note, I would like to one suggestion for research is that I see that you you classified different realist positions in how they deal with the measurement problem, and this is kind of a question for clarification. Also, you also mentioned that for an instrumentalist, for an anti-realist, the measurement problem is more important. But at the same time, there are different strains of anti-realism that sees the measurement problem either as an epistemological misunderstanding, and new Kantians in general. And there are, for example, Stefano Snaghi position that he proposed in a I don't think it's a very well-known paper, it's only on Portuguese, that he explicitly says that measurement problem can be dissolved, as you mentioned in your paper, but from a transcendental philosophy perspective. So maybe if we try to map all the different anti-realist positions on how they deal with the measurement problem, the measurement problem is not that important for anti-realists as well. So maybe with your research and this other mapping, maybe the measurement problem is not as important as we see at all for the philosophy of physics, philosophy of quantum physics.
Well, yeah, thank you. Yes, indeed. That's another, so this was kind of a provocative paper for the realist, right? And then a completely different question is, what about the, the anti-realist, right? What kind of measurement problem is relevant to them? Yes, so and this is following up also on whether there is a distinction between the information theoretical approach in general and instrumentalist as well. So yes, so there is, I think that there are many things to be done, including the one that you suggest, which I'm thankful, thank you for that. And also, I should, it's beyond me, but I know that I should learn German to go dig deeper in, the history and the papers that they wrote but I don't think I can pull it off. So, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Davide is next. I don't know if you're talking, in which case you're mute.
Sorry.
Okay, now I see you.
Hi, Valia. I guess. Yeah, see, I actually have a bunch of remarks, but just one at a time we see. So one question that is linked to the last question I have in mind is, so let me do the advocate of the devil, so to speak. So supposing I'm an instrumentalist like Carlo Rovelli, for example. I mean, Rovelli,
I don't think
we don't know if it's instrumentalist or not, but I heard Carlo Rovelli say something like there is no measurement problem.
Yes.
Because there is no superposition of eigenvalues. So I say, so what I'm thinking is, okay, the measurement problem arises if you think that there is a superposition of something. And this superposition doesn't match with what we see. But from an instrumentalist point of view, the wave function does not represent a physical state. So the only thing that is real is the eigenvalue. And a person like Rovelli could answer saying, for me, there is no measurement problem at all. So I was curious to know how you may convince that an instrumentalist has a measurement problem.
No, I don't want to convince him. I mean, I think that if you can get rid, I mean, if you're an instrumentalist and you are okay with getting rid of the macroscopic superposition, even in an imprecise way, you're okay. I mean, presumably what I should have said is that it is a problem for the instrumentalist if it is a problem at all. Okay, so if you're an instrumentalist, you may say, or in a sort of an anti-realist anyway, you can just say, look, I don't like the von Neumann rule because it's inelegant, or you know, it's just like there are two rules, two laws. It's, you know, it's not as simple as it could be, you know. I'm not sure how much, I mean, this would be as I was trying to respond to the previous question, this would be a completely different paper, but at the end of the day, if I would say something, if you are an instrumentalist, you should first of all try to solve, I mean, not to have this empirically inadequate theory, so you should fix it, right? Then different types of instrumentalists will say, okay, this is a correct way of fixing it, this is the best way of fixing it, right? With a von Neumann rule, with a precise rule, whatever, okay? But I think that they may have a problem, but they may not, right? So
Okay,
it may
I think I got it. Okay, right. I think I got the argument. Okay, thanks, Val.
Since you are behaving so well, I'm sure there's going to be more time at the end to have a second round of questions. So Davide, if you want to ask more later, if you can stay, of course, you're welcome. So now I have Jean and Vincent. First, Jean.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for this talk, which I liked very much. And myself, of course, I've usually presented the problem in terms of the measurement problem, except lately I've switched to what I call the ontological problem, which is what you call the primitive ontology. Of course, I was told that by Shelley many years ago, explained to me that's the real problem. But what is your, I mean, maybe I missed it, but you see, it seemed to me that you have three primitive ontologies: the particle ontology, the flash ontology, and the continuous matter density. Are those the three ontologies that you are willing to consider? And if yes, how seriously can you take the latter, the two, the flash and the continuous matter? I always thought that the flash and the continuous matter came as afterthoughts for theories like GRW of many worlds that primitively, if I may say, did not have an ontology. They didn't think of the ontology problem. I mean, I think GRW didn't think of the ontology before it was pointed out by you and Shelley and others. I mean, and there were these papers that you wrote, and I don't know, maybe other paper, I don't know. And then the many worlds, there's still many people in the many worlds still insist on the pure, the bare many world theory, the pure wave function ontology, which to me doesn't make any sense at all. But so it seems to me that these two, the flash and the continuous matter, come as afterthought, for these theories which were designed without an ontology, where the ball boom was always obviously with an ontology, and as Shelley would say, with the obvious ontology evolving in the obvious way. Now I want, just before you answer, I want to make one point about instrumentalism. I think it's very important to realize that instrumentalism doesn't make any sense as a philosophy of science unless you cannot have a realist theory. And many instrumentalists don't realize that you can have a realist theory, or think it's impossible because of the hidden variable theorem, because Bell's theorem, whatever they think. Then it's a position of renunciation. Okay, you renounce having a theory about the world because you think it's impossible. And once we realize that it's possible, I really don't see any argument for instrumentalism. There was instrumentalism about atoms, if you wish, before, when people didn't believe in atoms. They say, well, we don't know, but, these are mathematical constructs. Well, this has happened many times in history. But I don't think it makes sense to be instrumentalist if you have a realist alternative, at least my intuition about what science is all about. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no need to be sorry at all. So yeah, all right. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm pretty confident that in here, it's maybe not, but there are not many instrumentalists. So let me try to address your first point. Take my time to address your first point. Okay, so you said, oh, okay, but the flash ontology and the mass density ontology came as afterthought. Yes, and that's why I think that, and that's the fault of this is the measurement problem. Okay, it's because we focused on the measurement problem, and it's because we started to think, oh, okay, maybe this is another way of solving the macroscopic superpositions, right? The problem of, getting rid of the macroscopic superposition, that GRW and many words make sense, right? And so they were accepted by the realist, right? But still there was something not sounding right, not explanatory enough, not right about them as they are. And what is that? Well, it is because there's something, they have a field in configuration space. And that's when we said, okay, if you really want to insist on this, you have to add this, namely this other, flash ontology, matter density ontology, or particle ontology to those. Okay, but then of course, in the moment you do that, right, you're adding, say, the flash ontology. I mean, just like consider the matter density ontology to GRW, say that you say, okay, but what's the advantage of that, right? So it's adding something anyway, just like adding. It's actually not, I mean, it's adding all that matters, right? All that matters is the ontology in three-dimensional space. And so if I were to scratch everything from history, right? And somehow Einstein had a more influential take on the development of quantum theory, I would say that people maybe should have been more likely to endorse different ways of developing a dynamical, reductive theory from the start and say, look, right? I mean, there are, there are proposals for a GRW theory of particles, right? With disadvantages as well, right? So, where is
that explained?
Oh, in several papers, including one with Shelley and Rodi, but it's not nice, right? But the problem is, so in trying to come back to the original question, so they came out as afterthought, right? They should not have, okay? It's because for some reason, right? People got attracted to the measurement problem proposed by Schrödinger in terms of macroscopic superposition. And so everybody got tricked to take GRW bare and many were bare as solution. Other people came back and say, but what are they talking about? The wave function, no, the wave function cannot be the ontology of matter because it's in configuration space. So can we fix these theories? Yes, we can, right? And Bell and Girardi came along and blah, blah, blah. Did I remotely answer your question or?
It's okay, but I just wanted to ask you what do you think of those ontologies? Do you take them seriously?
Personally? Oh, they're not my favorite. No, I mean, I do like GRW because
it's Italian.
Well, no, yeah, I could, but well, Nino is Italian too, so Bohmian, but no, no, I mean, I do think that GRW with primitive ontology is worth taking a look at, especially because it is, I mean, I'm not really sure exactly what, but it is instructive with respect to relativity. Okay, so yeah, yes and no, right? So I mean, I don't know yet what exactly it can teach us, but I think there is I mean, the fact that the GRW with flashes is so in line, more in line with relativity than the other theories is telling us something about that there is something in the theory. Exactly what, I don't know. But of course, if I were looking only at the simplicity of the ontology and the simplicity of the law, then of course there seem to be no reason at all to consider other options than Bohmian mechanics. And in particular, if you are a realist, a robust realist, and you care about dynamical explanation, that's what the point. I mean, if you want to rephrase the point of the talk in a different way, if you're a robust realist, if you want to think about yourself as a realist and you care about explanation in a profound sense, you should be a Bohmian. Okay, now everybody, the word was just coming to destroy.
Good, then we agree. Okay.
Vincent?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Valia, for this talk. Very, very interesting. I would have several questions, but maybe just I would like to submit to you two kind of arguments or that maybe a kind of naive realist could submit to you in favor of wave function realism a la Albert, and another argument against a kind of robust realist. The first one is, from a naive realist perspective, what is the problem exactly with the wave function realism a la Albert? Because it gives you an ontology of the world, mind independent, gives you a dynamics, it gives you a kind of functionalist account of what we see around us. So in this kind of naive realist sense, it doesn't seem to be problematic in any way from a realist, again, a kind of naive realist. That would be the first argument in a little bit that a wave function realist could put forward. And another argument, general argument against maybe raising a kind of difficulty against the robust realist. And it's related also to this discussion around the constructive versus principle approach, is that there is something left out here in the discussion, is namely space-time. If we consider lessons from general relativity, or that space-time is a dynamical entity in the end, or even certain hints from quantum gravity, it seems that the kind of robust realist explanation that the robust realist is after, or the kind of constructive explanation the realist is looking for, is just not available from a more general perspective if you take into account the dynamical nature of space-time and hints from quantum gravity. So maybe we should look for a kind of generalized constructive approach, and maybe a functionalist approach could be a good one even for a realist. So what do you think about these two types of arguments that could be raised?
Okay. Okay, so let me try to summarize the first argument to see if I get it. Okay, so the argument is, look, right, what more do you want, right? We're giving you a function account. It's precise, and so what's the problem? Okay. The problem is that the type of realist you end up being, if you are like that, is presumably something that you're not willing to accept. So I was trying to push the idea that if you are a realist, the kind of understanding that you would want should be in terms of explaining why you get the observations that you get. And the type of explanation that gives you this, which it really should find satisfactory, is that you want more than just provide principles to constrain the phenomena, because that would mean to say, similar to say, oh, I find nothing wrong in thermodynamics, right? Instead, people looked into an understanding of thermodynamics in terms of a dynamical reductive theory. Kinetic theory explains the principle in terms of the dynamics of the particles, okay? So this type of explanation is a constructive explanation in the word of Einstein, okay? So if you are a realist like Albert and say, what the more do you want? What you're providing is very similar to a principle, okay? Three-dimensional objects are those objects that are functionally defined in such and such a way. That's a principle, right?
But there is an underlying story.
What is that?
The ontology of the wave function. There is an object out there in the world, and it's in virtue of the ontology and the behavior of this object, maybe a very unfamiliar, that we see the things around us. Couldn't this not a possible strategy, you think? Or
I don't. If you think like that, to me, it's just, you're just saying that, oh, because of the wave function, there is this principle, but the because is just like empty to me. I don't understand what you mean. Because of the principle, there is the principle. It's just, to me, it sounds like that, right?
so you don't buy the functionalist functionalist strategy as.
No, it can provide an explanation, but an explanation that to me is just as empty as the one of the explanation of the phenomena given by thermodynamics, right? I mean, it's okay, but it's not ideal, right? I want to know why the principle holds. Because of the wave function is just pointing to another principle that I don't know why, okay? I don't know why that works, okay? And maybe it's okay, maybe it works for you, but if it works for you, then in my eyes, I don't see much of a difference between you and, say, Jeffrey Boob, who says that, you know, they're principles and the principle holds because of the Hamiltonian structure.
Yeah, but these people cannot provide us with a picture of what the world looked like, mine independently. They would just give you some kind of, I don't know, mathematical structures or something, but they cannot provide the kind of ontological story that the wave function realist can give you, even if it's very unfamiliar or that you don't like it. But don't you think there's a difference there?
I see that there is a tiny difference. And if you are I mean, you can buy, I mean, if you are a wave function realist, you can bite the bullet and go for that and be tiny different for you. It's not a tiny different for me. But I mean, I don't know. To me, I mean, that's what I said. There is a tension, right? Between, you know, I want to be a realist, and then you end up with this. You're close to them, and maybe you're too close, right? I mean, are you realizing that you're so close? Maybe you're okay with that.
Valia, what is maybe this will help with Vincent, because I'm also confused. What is the principle that David Albert is invoking that you're objecting to?
Well, he says something of the sort that three-dimensional objects are defined in terms of the wave function functionally.
By the way, maybe you could explain briefly what does Albert propose? He has just a wave function. Is that the idea?
Yes, yes, yes. The wave function can play the role of these three-dimensional objects.
So it's like the many worlds, the bare many worlds theory?
I don't know, because, you know, there are many proponents about many words, but I mean, he says, right,
No, it's definitely not many worlds. But Albert was, there are two Albert theories relevant here with wave function realism, I guess. There'd be the GRW version, just wave function, bare GRW theory, and then there'd be his version of Bohm's theory. I don't want to call it Bohmian mechanics, maybe he would, but you know, with just the marvelous point and the wave function, everything is taking place in configuration space at some fundamental level. That's the fundamental space. So there could be, there's a version of Albert. Albert advocates one theory which just has wave function on configuration space, but not satisfying Schrodinger's equation. And then another was wave function on configuration space, satisfying Schrodinger's equation, but also the point in configuration space, quasi-Bohmian theory.
But the point is just a bunch of points in 3 dimensions, right?
The what?
The point in configuration.
No, for him, what's fundamental is a single point,
right,
in configuration space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what's the difference between that and a bunch of points in 3 dimensions?
There's a difference between 10 and 1.
right. So,
I understand, Shadi, but okay, I understand, but still the 10-dimensional space would be a bunch of numbers, each of which is in 1 dimension, right?
But that's something you would only recognize after doing very heavy-duty, serious functional analysis for David.
yes.
What's the point then?
What do you mean, what's the point?
The point is that according to him, you can entertain the possibility that the wave function is the fundamental entity of the word, and even if it's in configuration space, he wants to say there is this thing which is in configuration space, which is what is fundamental. We shouldn't call it configuration space because that seems to imply that there are actual configuration. Let us call it high dimensional space. In this high dimensional space, there is this field, right? That's what's real. Then what's the appearances of 3-dimensionality of location and the properties of macroscopic object are emerge, so to speak, functionally. He has this in papers and the latest book in which he tries, he argues that you can define 3-dimensional objects functionally, right, in terms of the wave function. The wave function, you can, you know. Okay, and so, right, I forgot where so yeah, okay, so the question was, the Shelley questions was, what are you objecting to? It's not that I'm objecting, I'm saying that if you endorse, well, I do, but I mean, if you endorse that, in this time I say, okay, let's grant that you can do that. Okay, so what kind of explanation does it provide? And what I was trying to push for, the idea that the explanation that endorsing such a principle provides is way too close to Bob and Petoskey's approach than you, David Albert, would like. Okay, so regarding the other remark on quantum gravity, well, I would simply say that sure, there is a lot of discussion about the emergence of space-time, and there is a lot of people which are convinced and a lot of people which are resisting. So right now, I don't feel like there is compelling evidence for me to say that space-time can be functionalized, or there is something to be done regarding, I mean, we have really you know, are pushed, right? We are without options. We cannot provide a constructive explanation if quantum gravity is correct. But of course, I would say that as a robust realist, I'm very suspicious about this kind of approaches, because they suggest that, I mean, how can you possibly, what are the ways in which space-time can emerge, right? Emerges from where, what kind of explanation of the emergence can you provide? That's where I don't really know exactly how you can fill in, right? And I will be, if I will be, personally, if the only options that there are theories of quantum gravity in which there is no space-time, I would look, I would hope that someone else would look another way, because I can't do it. But it would be very, very, I would feel like Lawrence right now, right? Okay, if you do that, I'm just,
and you
just
would,
look another way.
And the idea is that there are hints that certain space-time, smooth space-time structures are just not there at a certain level. In order to account for what we see around us, we could give a kind of functionalist story. You wouldn't buy that either, or?
I would feel very sorry if I had to buy that.
And just my last point is that my comment was also based on general relativity. You don't need to go to quantum gravity to see that there is potentially a problem for the kind of robust, realist, constructive approach that you promote, in the sense that if you just try to define local variables in a certain strict sense for the gravitational field in a background independent way, it might be difficult in certain cases in a very general way.
Physics is hard.
No,
that's
but
not going to be a real. That's not going to be a real problem. It'll just require mathematical and physical clarity. So it's a bit of a challenge, but Vincent, you could do it. I guarantee you. But it's worth thinking about. You're quite right. It's worth thinking. There's some hints in that direction in my paper with Detlef and Nino on relational mechanics, quantum motion on shape space. Because if all you have is shape space, you are facing this problem that you mentioned.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So you have to say things in a much more careful way, but you could do it because we live in a world which could very well be relational. So and we do manage to succeed. So you can do it.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, we have 9 minutes. I actually have a question that while I'm asking the question, if you want to ask other questions, please write your name down. Valia, so my point was actually, okay, I totally agree with the fact that the completeness problem is a main problem, let's say, for the realist. What I wasn't following, maybe I misunderstood something, so please tell me more, is why then you would say that the measurement problem is not a problem at all for the, how you call it, the radical realist? Okay. So the reason is, sorry?
Bube and Petoskey, information theoretical people?
No, the radical.
Yes, they're the radical. The radical in the sense that they're radically relaxed, right? They're so relaxed, they're borderline instrumentalist. You mean the wave function realists?
No, for the wave function realists. So why it's not a problem for them? So the reason is the following. So, so there is maybe there is a way to look at the measurement problem, which is the one you were suggesting, which is perfectly fine. But then one could think that there is a consequence of the existence of the measurement problem, which is a sort of underdetermination between different theories. So if I'm realist in whatever sense I have in mind, it seems that I have to be committed in the theory that I think is the true one. And there I have more than one. And this is a result. It's not the measurement problem itself, but it's like the fact that it exists and it has more than one solution. So in this sense, I have more than one theory. And I don't know to which I should be committed. So what ontologically committed, which one I should trust, because, I don't know which one is the correct one. Do you think that in this sense, this is a problem that is as important as the completeness problem?
The underdetermination problem?
Let's call it that way, yeah.
Okay. So, well, it's going to depend on what kind of realist you are. If you are a robust realist, really think that you need to complete quantum mechanics with some three-dimensional entity, then it's not the underdetermination you have it as the one that Jean suggested, right? You have different types of ontologies in three-dimensional space and different theories. that can do that. But bare, meaning more than bare GRW, are never an option for you. Okay, if you are a wave function realist, then you may have different, you will surely have different different possibilities in front of you. Whether they're complete under determination, I don't think so. I mean, they're always, I mean, just in, also for the robust realist, I mean, for everybody, if you're really a realist, you have to, I mean, in your heart, you will break the underdetermination one way or another. There will be criteria for you to say, I'm just going to go for this one as the possibility. I'm not going to rule this out, this and that, but this is the one that I prefer. What I mean is that you're going to use something like simplicity. This is the simplest theory. I know that simplicity is you know, difficult to define and all this kind of stuff, but in some sense, the most parsimonious theory, the one that has, you know, the most straightforward equation, and then you're going to look at compatibility with relativity or other kind of stuff like that. And that's why I responded to Jean in the way that I did. And in the sense, why, if I'm a robust realist, why do I even consider GRW at all, right? I mean, the simplest and most explanatory theory is Bohmian mechanics, right? Simplest ontology, simplest set of equations and stuff like that. Because to me, other theories that would look simpler are actually not an option for the reasons that I've tried to convey. But there are other theories like maybe GRW that, you know, maybe they're teaching us something about how we can make this theory compatible with relativity and move in a particular direction. So there is a sense in which the measurement problem taught us something, right, that we would not have seen if we hadn't considered it. But that's very different from what people usually think. So to me, the measurement problem taught me to take GRW seriously because of the relativity concern, but not, it didn't really teach me that there are actually three options. Yeah.
On this last point, so on GRW, like why I was following the discussion, but I wasn't like 100% convinced by the claim that GRW was just a solution to the measurement problem and not to the completeness problem. So the Bell sentence.
No, GRW, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there is all the, I wouldn't say that the whole debate about the ontology of GRW, the mass, so the paper about the mass density is 1995. So it's before, I think, before any like discussion about the primitive ontology. Bell's paper is even earlier, or 1 year later than Girardi's first paper. So I don't think that they were sort of like trying to solve just one problem. I think that the idea of providing an ontology in 3 dimensions was pretty like clear from the beginning. So I just wanted to point out that it was weird to think that the first GRW was sort of the bare theory, and then I don't know what the, you know, like.
It's very, yeah, okay, so.
And then Alberto has a comment afterwards. Sorry, Valia.
No. Okay, so the sense in which I think, you know, Schrödinger proposed the measurement problem. He said, look, right, if you want to eliminate, I mean, it doesn't, quantum mechanics cannot be right, cannot be describing reality, because you see what happens if we consider a cat, blah, blah, blah. You see macroscopic superposition. We don't see macroscopic superposition, so there's something wrong. People, especially Bell, later on came, okay, how can we fix this, right? And they focus on that. As a consequence, 3 main proposals came along, okay? But if you care about only the measurement problem as precisely suppressing macroscopic superposition, right, then it's unclear why you need, you know, to complete theories just like GRW. Why do you need the F or the M? Why do you need them, right? This is what people have been complaining to us all the time, okay? Why do you need the M and the F? what I'm trying to suggest here is that because what we ultimately are trying to do is not to solve the measurement problem, we are trying to solve the ontology problem, or what I've called the completeness problem, which is another problem. Okay, but it is a puzzle. If you start to the completeness problem, it seems like you would never ever ended up considering GRW. Why do you want to consider a stochastic equation? Maybe there are other reasons, but not the measurement problem. Maybe not. I mean, so it seems odd to me to consider like that's if you already have another way of doing it, like Boolean mechanics. Does it make sense? What I mean, this answers your question.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and that's basically what I wanted to say is that I think the two problems, let's call it that way, were already in their mind. But I wouldn't be that sure, because I mean, it seems that you know, like the reasons, some of the reasons why the GRWM was proposed might be completely independent. So there are some technical reasons why they started looking at mass. Mathematical reasons why they started looking at mass. It's not so clear that they were thinking just about the ontology, maybe somewhere in the back of their head, but it's not. And as for the flash, as you know very well, the main reason why I started proposing this is precisely to give a relativistic version. So it's not that we said, okay, let's give an ontology to GRW and let's use flashes and let's make it relativistic. Is that he thought, let's make it relativistic, and one way is to have this ontology. So the ontology is a solution, it's not the problem. But yeah.
Christian is certainly right that historically, the main proponents of GRW proposed it with, and in the very early papers, with an ontology in mind, of mass density or something very much like a mass density. And today, the main proponent, I guess, is Bassi, who always has the mass density or something like that in mind. Well, why, if the measurement problem is their problem, you know, you're quite right, Valia, but you know, human beings are extremely limited. And so they don't even know clearly why they believe what they do. It is a historical fact that despite the fact that quantum mechanics has brutally obvious limitations which go beyond the measurement problem, you really had to hit people over the head with the measurement problem to get them to see there was any problem at all. For whatever reason, look, there's a lot of Trump voters. Isn't that hard to explain? There are also a lot of strange views about quantum mechanics. If you had the much more difficult problem than understanding quantum mechanics is understanding the history of quantum mechanics and all the strange, weird things people have said. I'll never understand that.
Yeah, I know people are, yeah. So sociology, history, and all this kind of stuff is all correlated. Yeah, so what I was mainly trying to do is pointing out how that was weird, and maybe we can actually use that fact to actually set out the camp and say, look, right, you worry about this because you care about this type of explanation, and that commits you to a particular kind of realism, so that at least people that find a particular solution ideal may, or better than another, may actually better understand the other people's point of view, to point out that you're actually asking different questions and thinking that what you find satisfactory is different from what other people find satisfactory. So maybe.
There is a comment from Alberto. I'm sorry, Alberto, for the...
Very, very fast because it's late.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks to Valia, very ambitious and interesting presentation. I totally share the methodology. I'm encouraged to go further. I think there are a number of knots in the reasonments and the matters which need to be looked at. I recommend to look at Böhm paper of 1951, the second one. He published two papers in this, one after the other, actually were published together. And in the second paper, the first one is the general called Böhm mechanics. The second one is the beginning of GRW. He says very clearly that he presents this way to interpret quantum mechanics because he bypasses von Neumann no-go theorem about hidden variable, because his hidden variable involve at the same time the wave function and the measurement system. Okay, so that historically has been one of the important factors that have connected the two. And there is a knot there with the two. Now one can say we can go beyond the no-go theorem of von Neumann today, but at the time it was crucial. And so to discuss the measurement process in the second paper, where he clarifies this further, there's a very short paragraph, which is number 7. And I really recommend to read it, although after you read it, to understand it, you have to read the full 2 papers, so it's a bit time consuming. But he clearly explains that these hidden variables he's hinting to are involved in a thermodynamic kind of process that describes the interaction of the measurement system with the quantum system. Now, he doesn't use the word decoherence, but he's describing what decoherence becomes later. This is 1951, and it is a key step in the process. So there is originally an interconnection between the two, which generates the question and all some of the discussion we have seen today. The second point is that I use this to make an example. If you take the strict tendency or hope for a realistic constructive approach, I would say more in the sense of Euclid, that you construct with the stones and with, so the ancient constructive approach. If you can construct the collapse of von Neumann, then you cannot say that Born rule is an automatic probability rule anymore, because you have to explain how it comes about. So actually, what often is not well realized is that if you can construct the collapse, then you don't have the Born rule anymore. You have to find a new construction. Either you put it back inside by the back door, like is done in many cases, or you have to find a new construction process. And that creates the reasonment loop. So I think there is many knots that are not untangled in the discussion. And it's maybe not for today, but one needs to go deeper on this kind of topics.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know I have a lot to read and to reread, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, and sorry to Davide. Might maybe wanted to ask more, but anyway,
No, that's fine, Christian. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. And so, hi, Lev. I hope there was no problem with the time. Yes, that's because you came 10 minutes ago. So
I'm sorry. Friday night is a bad day, so
no, I am sorry. I thought okay. But good that you came to say hi anyway. Okay, so thank you, Valia, a lot for the talk. It was really great discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's really, really good. I enjoyed the discussion a lot. And so next week, we will have Peter Lewis. I forgot the title of the talk, so I'm not gonna make it up now. I'll send you an email as usual. And everyone is welcome. So yeah, I'll send you the recording on the mailing list so that if you were late or couldn't come, you can look at the recording. Thanks a lot. Thanks again, Valia. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Valia. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.